Hi, I'm delighted that you're back, and you may hear some panting in the background. That's my wonderful four-legged sentient being who you've heard of before, Bono. He's in the background, and of course it's very hot today. We hit sort of 32 degrees, and so I've been cooling him down. So, a quick recap of everything that you've learnt on the courses before on the webinars. So on the first one, we did the art of mindfulness and joy with your pet, and we looked at being with your dog as well as doing a yoga practice called Anuloma Viloma, or alternate nostril breathing. Now this harmonizes and releases the stress in your system and has shown to have an impact on de-stressing the system and through the scientific measurement of people's brain waves when they're carrying out this practice. The second webinar was on the art of creating recipes, and we looked at the do's and don'ts of diet and how easy it was to cook for yourself as well as for your dog, and what to avoid, that is, what human foods to avoid for dogs. The third webinar was on the emotional and physical needs of your pets, and we looked at the importance of appreciating your dog's space, feelings and awareness, and that others may look at dogs as a generic group. And we similarly can't look at humans as a generic group. So dogs, like humans, have specific personalities, qualities and traits, and also an awareness that pet owners needed to ensure that not only were they aware of this, that they didn't buy into the mass-produced ideas of how to treat dogs. So there's, what I really sort of advocate for is, read that, but please use your intuition and your own, understanding and intimacy with your four-legged sentient being. So we also explored there sort of the dogs have also something similar to what humans have, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we went through that. And so ultimately, the conclusion was, please don't allow animals to slot into your life. If you take on an animal, then please, you've got to understand that, when you have a child and it changes your life, an animal does the same thing. The last webinar was on health and supplements, and this was important, especially for those of you who are looking for supplements for your pets. Are you okay, my darling? I'm just having a cough, as well as transitioning to vegan diets, and that this was indeed possible, and then it required you to carry out the necessary research as you're intuitively aware of your dog's needs, but also please do seek a vet and a nutritionist's advice. And today's webinar is going to be about shifting into a new way of thinking. So those of you who know me, I'm an international lawyer, senior international lawyer. I'm also a mediator, a yogi, and I've done many sort of courses, self-development courses, etc., because I believe that as a human being you should be constantly sort of examining and understanding your life alongside living in the world as well. I certainly don't advocate living in a cave and disappearing off. I think, although for some it might work, but for many of us we need to integrate what we learn and really build a better world and a better society. So today we're going to be talking about what it means to be a 21st century human, and I'll start with introducing some key words which are important for you to be aware of, because the usual education system really doesn't provide us, with this information. The first is really understanding a very basic premise that we too are animals beyond what religion and culture and society has taught us through their interpretation. At the core of it, we're animals. We're sitting on a little planet in the middle of nowhere, and although we may be advanced in certain aspects, each animal has its own unique quality that we really must respect. And I call it an understanding that they are cohabitees of this planet. So we don't detract from the uniqueness of other animals. We appreciate it. So currently the system interprets it only through a human lens. And if we look back, colonization, there was an inferiority complex that, which manifested in sort of having to dominate others, or whatever the reasoning is. And, the women's suffragette movement, the fact that, it's only come to light in the last 100 years, and slavery as well. So just be mindful of what are the dominant, systems at the time. And currently the dominant system is sort of flesh-eating, and we need to examine that. The other thing is the anthropocentric lens. This is a really important term to understand. Anthropocentric literally means regarding humankind as a central or most important element of existence, especially as opposed to gods or animals. And when we assess animal intelligence, we tend to take a very anthropocentric view, which, if you think further on this, is actually not a good idea. You can't just look at it from a human's lens. The other important term is speciesism. It's the idea that human being is a good enough reason for human animals to have greater moral rights than non-human animals, a prejudice or bias in favour of the interests of members of one's own species and against those members of other species. Another important term to understand is Carnism. This was advocated and initiated by Dr. Melanie Joy. It's the invisible belief system or ideology that conditions people to eat certain animals. So Carnism is essentially the opposite of veganism. So Carn means flesh or of the flesh, and ism refers to a belief system. A simple example is in certain parts of China they eat dogs, but we eat cows here. So although we may get angry that we can have pets as dogs, but China eats dogs, we've got to look at our own thing of, a cow being more sentient than a dog, and we're eating it. Now, dairy-free. Some people need to avoid dairy products because their bodies can't digest lactose, or they have an intolerance or allergy to proteins in cow's milk, casein, albumin, or whey. Now, if you're allergic and you consume these proteins, you might get a very sudden digestive reaction, a skin reaction. You might struggle to breathe, inflammation, etc. Now, milk from animals, including cows, goats, sheep, and humans, all contain lactose. Intolerance to lactose means that when you can't yourself produce enough lactase, an enzyme in your gut that actually breaks down lactose. So that is not veganism, it's just an intolerance. So it's an awareness of that. Now, the other thing is the vegan diet is sometimes advocated as the new diet. It means avoiding all animal products. And compare this to vegetarian. So the difference between a vegan and vegetarian diet is that vegans will exclude dairy products and eggs and honey, whereas and they will avoid it on the premise that their production causes animals some suffering or premature death. So it's really important to understand ethical veganism versus plant-based diets. A plant-based does not necessarily mean that the products are vegan. So it might be a diet where the ingredients are vegan, but you may have a plant-based individual who's wearing leather jackets, for instance. So this is just for you to be entirely aware of. In the next video, really look forward to seeing you then, is a very high-level summary of certain things that you need to, or you should, or and enjoy yourself in the process of learning, to watch documentaries and videos, etc., that are currently available. It's important because then you're at least you're self-aware when you really look into your inquiry around veganism. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye.